And tradition one, our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends on AA unity. I just want to read this first paragraph. The unity of Alcoholics Anonymous is most cherished quality of society has. Our lives, the lives of all to come, depend squarely upon it. We stay whole or AA dies. Without unity, the heart of AA would cease to beat. Our world arteries would no longer carry the life-giving grace of God. His gift to us world would be spent aimlessly back in the caves. Alcoholics would reproach us and say, what a great thing AA might have been. So, when I got sober, I didn't know anything about the traditions. You know, I saw them on the wall, and they didn't make too much sense to me. You know, I mean, the steps didn't even make too much sense to me for that matter. You know? So I had really no clue what the traditions were all about. And after I got sober, and you know, I did look the steps in my life, and got acquainted with that person I was running from all my life. You know, I understood who I was and what I was here to do on the planet. And then I was introduced to the traditions, and what I was told about the traditions from my sponsor was that is guardrails to keep us together. The guardrails are to keep us together. He said to me that just like tradition, just like step one hinges on our 12 steps, the tradition one also just hinges on how the group stays together. And I didn't quite understand that, you know, at first, but you said the one thing that I do understand is unity. You know, how do I unite? You know, what do I do to be a united force in AA? And I didn't quite know what that meant exactly. You know, but I did know that I had a spiritual awakening as a result of the steps. I did know that. And I did know that I had to carry the message of Alcoholics Anonymous in all of my affairs. But how that worked in real life and in the real rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous and also in the world were kind of foreign to me, you know. And then I started to understand that the thing that they talked about was the common welfare. And I looked up the word common welfare because I just wanted to make sure that I understood what it really means. And I have it here. It says, common welfare, the health, safety, and peace, and overall well-being of the general public. And it says, the group well-being is putting the needs and safety of the whole group first. And I'm like, wow, you know, how do I do that? You know, how do I know what that really is? What is the welfare of Alcoholics Anonymous? Well, the welfare of Alcoholics Anonymous, to me, in my experiences, is to be united. You know, when I got here, you guys were already here. You know, Alcoholics Anonymous is already here. And if it wasn't for Alcoholics Anonymous being here, I don't think I'd be here either. You know, because where do I go? Well, I'm going to walk into a room with alcoholics and nobody's going to be there, right? And so it's my responsibility as a member of Alcoholics Anonymous is to try to be a uniting force and to take care of alcoholics, to be a steward as you wish to Alcoholics Anonymous, and make sure I'm doing my part, you know, to become a member of Alcoholics Anonymous and wherever I can. And if that means sacrificing something that I meet my thoughts or my ideas or my personality or my character defect, you know, we all have, you know, it's funny because it's like I was reading today that we have all these different traits, right? Some of us are loud, some of us are quiet, some of us are outgoing, and some of us are shy, some of us are control freaks, and some of us we just follow along, you know, and how does that work in a group? You know, like who's the leader? You know, who's the follower? Who's the person that's, you know, doing making the pulling strings. And when I found out that no one's really pulling the strings, you know, we all work together and we all have to, I know that I have to humble myself, or I have to do whatever it takes for me to have to be the binding force for the unity of Alcoholics Anonymous. Because without that, no, the book says that the group is, no individual is greater than the group, right? So I'm not more important than the group, because without the group, I'm not here. Without Alcoholics Anonymous, I'm not here. And so I have to be a force for the good of the group. And what that means also in my home or in my way of life is, well, I'm retired now, so I really don't have to practice too much at work, you know. But when I was at work, there were a lot of groups, you know, and one of the ones that mostly applied to me was wearing a uniform. I hated the uniform. You know, I had to go to work and wear a uniform. And they were really strict sometimes about the way you wore your uniform. You know, sometimes you had to make sure it was laundered. You had to make sure your shoes were shined. You had to make sure you were dressed properly, because the uniform was a symbol of what the company was. So I was the only person out there in the world wearing that uniform that the public, when they saw me, they knew that I worked for a certain company. So not only did I have to wear the uniform, but I had to act appropriately, right? I had to be a person that was respectful and polite, and just, you know, listening to people's I was like a customer service type of person, because the customer came first, and wherever you were dissatisfied, and I had to try to make things right for you, you know, for the good of the company, right? If I were to go out there and act and have this uniform on, let's say, for example, I wasn't, but let's say, for example, I was a police officer, right? And I was acting a fool as a police officer, right? That would be a bad mark on the police department, right? And especially if I went in there with my shirt half tucked in, or wearing all my guns and all, you know, looking like a slob when I got to work, you know, that would be a reflection on the company that I worked for. So even if I didn't like it, I had to get up in the morning and make sure that my uniform was proper, and make sure that when I got to work, I was proper, you know. And if I didn't do that, guess what would happen? One or two things would happen. They'd call me in the office, tell me that I better dress better the next day, or I would get sent home to put on a clean clean shirt or a clean pair of pants, because they were really strict about that. You know, that was part of my oath. So even though, and that's kind of like the same way I think, you know, that Alcoholics Anonymous really kind of looks too, is like the way we behave out in the world sometimes could be a mark on alcoholics, and the way that people see Alcoholics Anonymous, you know. And I can't be out there behaving like I did before and be an Alcoholics Anonymous, because, you know, it's like that's kind of a bad mark on Alcoholics Anonymous, and I think it kind of repels, or it'll distract, or it'll make people believe that we are a certain way here, and we're not, you know. And so sometimes me conforming to the principles of Alcoholics Anonymous, which are in the 12 steps of recovery, you know, if I practice those principles on a daily basis, tolerance, love, kindness, all those things that we learn, that I try to practice in my daily life, and I'm out there doing that, I'm kind of wearing the uniform of Alcoholics Anonymous, you know. I'm kind of crisp, and my pants are creased, and, you know, my shoes are shined, and, you know, and that's the way I kind of look at it, you know. And the day that I go to work, I'm dressed like a slob, that's kind of a mark on Alcoholics Anonymous too, you know. And so that's the way I can really talk about tradition one, because it also says about my recovery also depends on it, right? Our personal recovery depends on the unity of Alcoholics Anonymous. So, you know, how far am I in the steps? You know, how much time do I have in Alcoholics Anonymous? What's my recovery look like today? You know, am I practicing the program of the principles of Alcoholics Anonymous in my daily and all of my affairs? These are the questions I ask myself, you know, and so I get to look at myself and I say, well, I wasn't very good there. You know, I wasn't good in that area. I need to be better at that area in my life, and in my family, and the things that I do out in public. You know, make sure that I am trying to be a uniter and not a divider. You know, a person that the book says that that we were masters of confusion rather than harmony. You know, that's who we were. That's what I was before. A master of confusion rather than harmony. I could walk into a place and I could, you know, I could berate you right at the minute, you know, at drop of a hat, right? And could try to cause confusion or anger or whatever it is, because I'm self-centered and I want to make myself look better than you know. And so because of that, you know, I like people repel and they get away from me or they want to be around me. And Alcoholics Anonymous teaches me the opposite. You know, teaches me how to behave and how to be polite and kind to other people and how to unite, you know, unite the people that are around you. You know, I looked up the word, what makes a group? And the answer was 3 people make a group. So it doesn't take a whole lot of people to make a group, you know. So if there are 2 people sitting in the room with me, we're a group. And I have to behave myself accordingly to unite unite those people, whether it's 2 or 5 or 10 or 12 or 100, you know. And if I start taking my ego and putting it onto the group, you know, that's probably not a good idea. So for me, I've learned that tradition 1 for me is like the beginning of learning how to be united amongst people. You know, how I must behave around people, and in my family, and in I would say my work, but I don't have to do that anymore at work. Matter of fact, I burned the uniform. Just to make sure. I would happily give it away. Say, here, everybody, take those. You know, because I don't want to wear that uniform anymore. You know, and because I'm free from that. But what I've learned about wearing that was that I had to conform whatever it is that went on with me for the better of the company and for me now I have to conform whatever I need to do to the better of this company. You know, this company of Alcoholics Anonymous that so proudly took me in when I didn't have anything, right? They were there for me when I came in, you know, and I still want them to be here for me long after I go, for the newcomer to come in and have a place to sit and join, right? To join us, because we can't do this by ourselves. I know that for a fact. You know, I can't do this for myself. You know, there's been a lot of stuff in my recovery that I've gone through, but if it wasn't for you guys, I probably wouldn't be able to make it through those things. You know, and because it's tradition 1 that we create this environment of safety and an environment of well-being and an environment of unity. To me, I can come in and be a part of it and join the group, and that's all I got. Thanks.